I thanked my grandfather for the $200 check and smiled, just trying to be polite, but the moment he froze mid-carve, the entire table fell silent. He slowly raised his eyes to mine, confusion turning sharp. "What $200? He asked softly. Then, louder, cold, deliberate. "The gift I sent you was $500,000. For a moment, I thought he was joking. My grandfather had always loved dramatic pauses, loved dropping little surprises into conversations like glitter bombs. But the way he set down the carving knife, slowly, deliberately, made every muscle in my body tense. The rest of the family froze too, forks halfway to mouths, eyes widening as if someone had cut the power to the entire room. "What do you mean, $500,000? I whispered. Grandfather didn't laugh, didn't soften. He just stared at me like I'd spoken in another language. "I wired the transfer 3 days ago," he said. "You should have received it instantly." A strange, uncomfortable heat crawled up my neck. "Well, I didn't. I only got the check in the mail." I held up the envelope like a physical confession. $200. That's it. His jaw tightened. And that was the moment the atmosphere shifted from holiday warmth to something sharp and dangerous. Not angry, calculating. Determined. He wiped his hands on a dish towel with a slow, controlled motion. "Who handled the mail this week?" he asked. Aunt Linda's eyes flicked away. Cousin Tyler suddenly found his cranberry sauce extremely interesting. Uncle Raymond cleared his throat like something was caught in it. My grandmother, bless her, whispered, "Oh dear," and crossed herself as if something holy or unholy had just entered the dining room. Grandfather stepped closer to me, lowering his voice even though everyone leaned forward to hear. "You're telling me that out of an entire wired transfer, the only thing you saw was a paper check for $200? "Yes," I said. "That's all." "And you confirmed your account?" he asked. I nodded too quickly. I checked twice. There was nothing. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it behind my ears. The idea that a mistake had happened was terrifying enough, but the look on his face told me this wasn't about a bank error. Someone had meddled. The thought dropped into my mind like a weight through water. Grandfather finally exhaled, a slow, disappointed breath, and looked around the table, really looked. He wasn't searching for sympathy. He was searching for guilt. "Interesting," he murmured. Cousin Tyler squirmed. Aunt Linda stiffened. Even my little brother stopped chewing. Grandfather returned his gaze to me. "Come sit down," he said gently. "We're going to sort this out. All of it." As I took my seat, every person at that table looked at me differently, some worried, some nervous, and one or two, afraid. Because everyone suddenly realized the same thing. If the $500,000 didn't reach me, then someone in this room made sure it didn't. Grandfather didn't return to carving the turkey. He didn't sit. He didn't blink. He simply pointed at my phone. "Show me your banking app." Not a request. A command. My stomach twisted. I unlocked my phone with trembling hands, aware of every pair of eyes drilling into me. The table was so silent I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator from across the house. I opened the app. My balance stared back at me, normal, unchanged, nowhere near $500,000 richer. Grandfather leaned over my shoulder, inspecting the screen with the same intensity he used when reading legal documents. His frown deepened. "Nothing came in," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He extended a hand. "Let me." Heart pounding, I placed my phone in his palm. He scrolled through my transaction history with quick, precise movements. He wasn't looking for a deposit anymore. He was looking for something much darker. "A reversal," he muttered. "A withdrawal. A reroute." Then louder, "Something that shouldn't be here." But there was nothing. Just silence, and tension thick enough to chew. Across the table, Aunt Linda adjusted her glasses. Not casually. Nervously. Uncle Raymond dabbed sweat from his forehead. Tyler tugged at his shirt collar as if it suddenly strangled him. Grandmother fidgeted with her necklace, something she only did when she sensed trouble coming. Grandfather finally set my phone down with a soft thud. "This isn't right," he said. "I executed that transfer personally. It was confirmed by the bank. It had no reason to disappear." His voice lowered. "Unless someone made it disappear." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I swallowed hard. "But, Grandfather, who would even know about it?" He slowly turned his head toward the far end of the table, toward the three people who suddenly looked much smaller than they had 5 minutes ago. You'd be surprised who pays attention when money is involved, he said. Especially large sums.
He paused, eyes sharp.
And especially when that money wasn't meant for them.
His words hit the room like a dropped plate.
My mother shifted uncomfortably.
My uncle looked like he wanted to disappear. Tyler's knee bounced uncontrollably beneath the table.
And Aunt Linda stared straight ahead, jaw rigid, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. Grandfather took a step back, folding his arms. This wasn't a banking mistake, he said firmly. Someone intercepted that transfer.
My breath caught.
And then he added something that sent a chill through every person at that table. And that someone is sitting in this room. Grandfather rested both hands on the back of his chair, the carving knife still on the table beside the turkey, untouched and forgotten. The warm glow of the dining room light suddenly felt too bright, exposing every micro-expression on every guilty or innocent face.
He didn't speak right away. He let the silence cook us.
Then, in a low, steady voice, he said, I didn't send you that money as a gift.
His eyes locked on mine.
I sent it as a test. A ripple of confusion swept through the room. A test?
I repeated. He nodded.
You're the youngest adult in this family. The least entangled. The one person whose reaction wouldn't be tainted by greed. He paused, scanning the table. And the one person who has never asked me for anything. A few people shifted uncomfortably. I've been sick, he continued. Not dying, don't panic. Grandmother exhaled dramatically, but sick enough to start thinking about the future. About who deserves to manage this family's legacy when I no longer can.
Aunt Linda stiffened. She had always believed she was the natural successor.
The executor.
The responsible one.
The one who handled paperwork and lectured everyone about organization.
But in that moment, she looked like someone watching her crown slip off her head. Grandfather's voice sharpened. 30 years of hard work built what we have. Properties.
Investments.
Businesses.
Everything I've built for you, for your children, and their children.
He tapped his fingers slowly against the chair.
And I needed to know who I could trust with all of it.
My heart thudded so loudly I could barely hear anything else.
But I didn't expect the test to be failed before it even reached you, he said. I didn't expect someone to interfere before you even knew what you were being tested for. Gasps echoed around the table.
That transfer wasn't random. It was marked and traceable. A clean wire. No loopholes.
No complications.
He looked around again, eyes narrowing.
Only someone with knowledge of my accounts, someone who knew the timing, someone who felt threatened, would have intercepted it.
Aunt Linda dropped her fork. Tyler froze mid-sip.
Uncle Raymond muttered a curse under his breath. Grandfather straightened up, his presence suddenly towering. I was testing loyalty, he said. I was testing honesty. And I was testing whether this family could be trusted with a future I spent decades building.
He turned back to me.
But instead of learning about you, he said softly, I learned something far more unsettling.
He paused.
Someone is willing to steal from me, before I'm even gone. The moment Grandfather finished speaking, the dining room changed. Not physically. No lights flickered, no chairs moved, but the energy shifted hard, like someone had opened a door and let a cold wind sweep through.
People were no longer looking at Grandfather. They were looking at each other.
Suspicion spread across the table like a quiet contagion.
Cousin Tyler was the first to crack.
His leg bounced under the table so violently the silverware rattled. He forced a smile that looked more like a grimace and said, Come on, Grandpa, nobody here would steal from you. But his voice was too high, too thin, too afraid. Grandfather didn't respond. He just watched him. Then, slowly, Aunt Linda lifted her water glass with trembling fingers. She sipped, set it back down, and wiped her mouth with a napkin. A perfectly normal action, except her hand shook.
And Aunt Linda did not shake. Not ever.
Uncle Raymond coughed into his fist.
Loudly. Repeatedly.
Like he needed to fill the room with noise just to break the tension pressing on his shoulders. My mother looked between everyone, her expression tightening. She wasn't guilty, but she recognized guilt when she saw it.
And then there was Tyler again. Sweat dotted his forehead.
He kept touching his shirt collar, pulling it away from his neck like it was strangling him.
His eyes darted everywhere except toward Grandfather. Grandfather noticed every detail.
He folded his arms and leaned back slightly, assessing the table like a detective before announcing a verdict. No one is accusing anyone, he said calmly.
Not yet. Yet.
That single word dropped through the room like a stone. Grandmother whispered a prayer under her breath.
I swallowed hard.
Grandpa, someone must have made a mistake. Maybe the bank. No, he cut me off gently but firmly. Banks don't accidentally reverse $500,000 transfers within minutes. His gaze swept the table, steady and unblinking.
Someone did this deliberately.
Someone who knew exactly what they were doing.
Aunt Linda's lips tightened into a thin, unsteady line. Tyler's knee continued bouncing like a jackhammer.
Uncle Raymond drained his wine glass like it was medicine. Grandfather continued, and the only people who knew the timing of the transfer.
He paused. Are sitting right here. A pin could have dropped and echoed.
The lie, or lies, someone had tried so hard to bury were beginning to surface on their own.
Without confession. Without pressure. Just fear.
Because guilt doesn't stay hidden forever. And in that silent, tension-choked room, guilt was practically glowing. Grandfather didn't wait for anyone to speak. He reached into his vest pocket, pulled out his phone, and tapped a number so quickly it was clear this wasn't improvisation.
He had planned this.
Maybe not the chaos unfolding, but the next step.
He pressed the phone to his ear.
Put it on speaker, Aunt Linda said, forcing a laugh. No need to be dramatic.
Grandfather didn't even look at her. He simply pressed the speaker button. A crisp voice answered instantly.
This is Jonathan Marks, Private Banking Division. How can I help you, Mr. Whitlock? Even the formality of the voice made the room tighten. This wasn't a support line banker. This was someone who handled clients with 7-digit accounts and ironclad confidentiality. Grandfather's tone sharpened. Jonathan, I need you to confirm a transfer I initiated 3 days ago. The one to my grandson.
Jonathan didn't hesitate.
Yes, sir. The transfer of $500,000 was completed at 9:14 a.m. Eastern Time.
My breath caught. Completed.
Everyone at the table leaned closer, except Aunt Linda, who suddenly looked like someone had unplugged her spine. Now tell me what happened 4 to 5 minutes later, Grandfather said.
A pause.
Not long, just long enough for dread to creep under everyone's skin. Jonathan replied. The transfer was reversed.
The room exploded in gasps. Grandfather's jaw flexed.
And why was it reversed? Jonathan's voice remained professional, but there was a subtle change. He knew something was wrong. The system registered a request from an authorized user. Full account credentials were used. The reversal required multi-step verification. Someone with complete access approved it. Grandfather's gaze swept the table like a storm cloud. And who, he asked, are those authorized users?
Jonathan answered without hesitation.
Only 3 individuals have full clearance on that account.
You, sir, your grandson,
and the executor listed on file, your daughter, Linda Whitlock.
The silence that followed wasn't quiet. It roared.
Aunt Linda's face drained of color. Tyler swallowed so loudly it echoed. Uncle Raymond muttered something under his breath, something that sounded a lot like, oh hell.
My mother covered her mouth with both hands.
Grandfather spoke again, every word slicing through the tension. Jonathan, did anyone else attempt access?
No, sir.
Just the executor. Everyone looked at Aunt Linda. Her breath hitched. That's impossible, she whispered. I never.
Jonathan spoke again.
Mr. Whitlock, would you like me to send the verification logs? Grandfather stared at his daughter the way a judge stares at a defendant. Yes, he said. Send everything.
Aunt Linda finally broke.
Dad, she whispered, voice shaking, I can explain.
But it was too late.
The truth was already on its way. Aunt Linda's face went pale as the words echoed around the room. Executor.
Authorized user.
Full clearance.
Each one hit her like a hammer.
Grandfather ended the call and placed the phone gently on the table, but the gentleness only made the tension sharper. It was the quiet before a storm, one he fully intended to unleash. He turned toward Aunt Linda. Would you like to explain, he asked calmly, why my bank logs show your credentials reversing a $500,000 transfer?
I didn't, she stammered.
Dad, I swear, I never touched your accounts. Someone must have hacked.
Tyler let out an incredulous snort. A hack?
Really?
He regretted it instantly when she shot him a death glare. Grandfather didn't flinch.
Your login requires 3-step authentication, he said.
A password only you know. A numerical token sent to your personal phone.
And a biometric check using your device's fingerprint scanner.
He lifted a brow.
Would you like to claim a hacker also has your thumb?
Aunt Linda opened her mouth, but nothing came out. My mother leaned forward slightly.
Linda, did you really do something to Dad's account?
And no, she shouted. Too quickly, too loudly.
This is insane. Someone is setting me up. Grandmother whispered. Who would do such a thing? Everyone looked at Aunt Linda.
Her breathing grew shallow.
Grandfather took a seat, but his posture remained rigid, controlled. 3 people had access, he said, tapping the table 3 times.
Me.
My grandson.
His eyes settled firmly on his daughter. And you?
A trembling silence followed. My heart thudded in my chest, loud, painful, heavy. I hated being in the middle of this.
Aunt Linda seemed to shrink in her chair. Dad.
I wouldn't steal from you.
Grandfather nodded slowly. Perhaps not.
But would you try to control something meant for someone else? Her eyes flashed, just for a second, but everyone saw it.
That single flicker of defensiveness.
That hint of entitlement.
And it was enough. Uncle Raymond sighed deeply.
Linda, did you think the money should have gone to you?
She whipped toward him. Of course not.
I mean, Dad shouldn't make rash decisions without consulting me. I'm the executor. I'm supposed to protect the estate.
Grandfather's voice hardened.
You are supposed to follow my wishes,
not overwrite them. Aunt Linda's face twisted with wounded pride. But you've been unpredictable lately, she said quietly. I thought you were rushing things.
I thought.
She stopped herself. But it was too late. She'd revealed more than she intended.
Grandfather leaned back, eyes narrowing. So you did interfere? Aunt Linda froze. And by the look on her face, we all knew.
She had just trapped herself.
For a long moment, no one moved. Aunt Linda sat frozen, her fingers digging into the edge of the tablecloth as if holding on could stop the truth from pulling her under.
Grandfather didn't yell. Didn't accuse.
His calm was far more terrifying than anger.
Finally, he stood.
Everyone, he said, to the study.
A chill cut down my spine.
The study. The one room in the house no one entered without permission. The room where every important document, every contract, every family secret lived. If Grandfather wanted us there, it meant things were about to shift from suspicion to evidence. Aunt Linda's chair scraped violently against the hardwood floor as she stood.
Dad, this is unnecessary. We don't need to make a spectacle.
Walk,
he said simply. She fell silent.
We followed him through the hallway, a tense procession. Me, my mother, Uncle Raymond, Tyler, Grandmother, and finally, Aunt Linda, who looked like she was being marched into a courtroom. Grandfather pushed open the study door. The room smelled of cedar and old books.
Soft lamplight glowed over polished mahogany.
On the desk sat a sleek, black monitor.
He gestured for us to gather around. This is my office security system, he said.
Installed 2 years ago after several concerns.
His eyes flicked toward Aunt Linda.
Her lips parted, but no words came out. Grandfather clicked a file on the screen. A video window opened, dated exactly 3 days before. The timestamp matched the morning he initiated the transfer.
I felt the air thicken as the footage began to play. Grandfather wasn't in the office. But someone else was. The door opened in the video.
A figure slipped inside quickly, glancing over their shoulder before closing it again.
Aunt Linda.
She walked straight to the desk, straight to the drawer where Grandfather kept his financial documents. She opened it, pulled out a folder, and positioned it so the pages were visible. Then she lifted her phone.
And took photos. Dozens of them. Click, click, click. My stomach dropped.
In the video, she moved through the papers with practiced familiarity, account numbers, routing details, transfer confirmation sheets. She photographed everything, then returned each document with meticulous care. As if nothing happened. Back in the study, Aunt Linda covered her mouth with trembling hands. That's not what it looks like, she whispered.
Grandfather paused the footage.
Oh, he said softly. Then why don't you tell us what it is? Aunt Linda looked around, desperate for an ally.
No one stepped forward. She was alone now.
And the footage, the truth, was still glowing on the screen behind her.
No one breathed.
The frozen image on the monitor showed Aunt Linda mid-gesture, her phone angled over grandfather's financial documents like a thief caught by a flashlight.
Aunt Linda shook her head violently. No.
No, this is being twisted. I wasn't stealing anything.
Grandfather didn't respond. Instead, he clicked another file. A second video. This one had audio. My pulse hammered as the footage started.
The screen showed the same moment, Aunt Linda pulling out the folder. But now her voice filled the study. Whispery, nervous, panicked. He can't give all this away. He's not thinking clearly. I need to fix this. She flipped through the papers faster now, her breathing uneven.
Another whisper.
If Dad hands $500,000 to him, what does that leave for the rest of us?
A punch to the gut. My mother gasped. Tyler's jaw dropped.
Uncle Raymond muttered a curse under his breath. Even Grandma closed her eyes as if the truth physically hurt. On the screen, Linda kept talking to herself as she copied the documents. I've held this family together for years.
I manage everything.
I deserve some control. I have to stop him before he ruins everything. Then came the part that made my skin crawl. Still whispering, still frantic, she said.
I know his password.
If I reverse the transfer now, he'll never know. My breath hitched. In the study, Aunt Linda stumbled backward, almost tripping over the carpet.
That's not what it sounds like. I was just worried about Dad.
He's been emotional, irrational, he's making impulsive decisions.
Grandfather paused the video.
Impulsive, he repeated, voice low. Linda, giving a gift to my grandson is not impulsive. Tampering with my accounts is. She clasped her hands together, shaking. Dad, I was protecting the estate. What if you were being scammed? What if someone pressured you? Grandfather's eyes hardened. You weren't protecting the estate. You were protecting your inheritance.
Her eyes flashed.
That money, our legacy, shouldn't be thrown away. It's mine to give, he said firmly. And it was my responsibility to stop you, she snapped, then clamped her mouth shut, realizing too late what she'd admitted. Tyler covered his face.
Oh my God.
Mother whispered. Linda, how could you?
Grandmother's voice was barely audible.
You betrayed your own father. Grandfather leaned forward, hands on the desk. You accessed my office without permission. You photographed confidential financial documents.
You reversed a transfer you had no right to touch. And you lied. Aunt Linda's knees buckled.
But the worst part, Grandfather added quietly, is that you thought I wouldn't find out.
Her voice broke.
Dad, please.
But the video had spoken louder than she ever could. She was caught.
Aunt Linda's breathing turned shallow, almost shaky, like she was trying to swallow air that refused to go down. The video screen behind her glowed like a spotlight on her guilt, illuminating every tremble in her hands, every crack in her expression. I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered, though no one believed her, not even she did. Grandfather closed the video window with a soft click that echoed like a slammed door.
Linda, he said gently. Look at me.
She didn't.
Linda.
Finally, she lifted her eyes, and for the first time all evening, she didn't look angry or defensive.
She looked terrified.
I was trying to protect you, she said, voice trembling. You've been unpredictable lately. Emotional. Forgetful. I thought maybe someone manipulated you into sending that money. I thought you were being taken advantage of.
Grandfather's brow arched.
Manipulated?
By whom? My own grandson.
She flinched but kept going, desperation rising like water in a sinking boat.
You're aging, Dad.
You forget things. You trust people too easily. Someone had to step in before you gave everything away to someone who doesn't understand responsibility.
The jab hit like a slap. My chest tightened. My mother gasped.
Tyler muttered, bad move.
Grandfather exhaled slowly.
Linda.
I have led this family for decades. Managed businesses. Built every asset you see.
And you believe I suddenly became incapable?
His voice grew colder.
Or is that simply what you need to believe to justify your actions?
Tears filled her eyes.
Dad, you don't understand.
No, he said.
I understand perfectly.
Aunt Linda clasped her hands together. You've been distant.
You don't tell me things. I'm the executor. I should know everything. I'm supposed to oversee the estate. I'm supposed to keep you safe.
Grandfather shook his head.
Executor does not mean puppet master.
She winced.
And reversing a $500,000 transfer is not safeguarding, he continued.
It is theft. Her voice cracked.
Dad,
Don't lie anymore, he said softly. Not to me. Not to yourself. You didn't think I was being manipulated.
You thought you were being replaced.
Aunt Linda's breath hitched. And there it was.
The truth she'd been swallowing for years suddenly hanging in the air, exposed and naked. You thought I trusted him more, Grandfather said. You thought the inheritance, the control, the legacy, was slipping out of your hands.
Aunt Linda's tears spilled over.
That money was meant for him, Grandfather said, pointing at me. Because he has something you do not.
Her lips quivered.
What? Integrity.
Aunt Linda broke completely. Her knees gave out.
And she crumpled into the chair behind her, no longer the family authority, no longer the executor. Just a daughter who had finally been caught crossing a line she thought she owned. Aunt Linda sat hunched in the chair, shoulders trembling, face buried in her hands. The study felt smaller now, like the walls had shifted inward, tightening around the truth that had finally burst open. No one rushed to comfort her. Not out of cruelty, but because every person in the room understood something heavy. This moment had been building for years. Grandfather walked around the desk slowly, like a man carrying decades of disappointment on his back. He rested his hand on the edge of the desk and looked directly at me, not with anger, but with a kind of quiet resolution. It's time, he said softly. They deserve to know why I chose you.
My throat tightened.
Grandmother reached for her necklace, gripping the tiny cross at the end. Uncle Raymond leaned forward as if bracing himself. Tyler, eyes wide, waited like he'd forgotten how to blink. Grandfather took a steady breath. I didn't send that $500,000 to you because of inheritance, he said. I sent it because you're the only person in this family who has never once asked me for money. A hush fell over the room. You've worked hard, he continued. Gone through school on your own merits. You've never come to me with problems disguised as loans. You've never begged, manipulated, hinted, or complained. He turned toward Aunt Linda, whose red, swollen eyes lifted just barely. You've never treated me like a safety net or a bank.
My chest tightened painfully at his words. I didn't know he noticed these things. I didn't know they mattered so much to him.
Grandfather went on, voice steady but weighted. I wanted to see what you'd do with it, not the money itself, but the responsibility.
Whether you'd hide it, announce it, spend it, invest it,
or maybe, simply appreciate it.
He looked at me again.
But before I could learn anything about you, someone else interfered.
Aunt Linda flinched.
Grandfather sighed deeply, the kind of sigh that came from the soul. 4 years, I believed Linda could handle things when I'm gone.
She was always the organized one.
The helper. The manager.
He paused.
But somewhere along the line, being helpful became being controlling.
Linda let out a quiet sob.
And I realized, Grandfather said, that loyalty isn't measured by who handles the paperwork.
He rested a hand on my shoulder. It's measured by who respects your choices,
even when they don't benefit them.
No one spoke.
The room felt suspended in air. Then Grandfather said the words that changed everything.
I wasn't choosing an heir.
I was choosing a guardian.
A guardian. Not of money. Not of assets. Of the family legacy. And he had chosen me.
Aunt Linda lifted her head slowly, mascara streaked down her cheeks, eyes red and swollen. For the first time in my life, she looked small, fragile even. Not the controlling, sharp-tongued authority figure she'd always been. Just a daughter terrified of losing the place she'd spent her whole life fighting to keep. Dad, she whispered, voice cracking. You think I don't respect you? Grandfather didn't answer immediately. He let the question hang in the air, heavy and demanding.
His silence said more than his words ever could. Mother stepped forward tentatively.
Linda, you should say what you need to say.
But Linda wasn't looking at her.
She was staring at Grandfather with a mix of desperation, anger, and heartbreak. I've taken care of you, she said, clutching the arms of the chair. I've handled your paperwork, your bills, your appointments, your mail, everything. I've sacrificed so much, time, energy, my own life, to make sure you never had to worry about anything. Grandfather's expression softened, but only slightly. Taking care of tasks, he said gently, is not the same as taking care of trust. Linda shook her head, tears falling freely.
You don't understand.
Ever since Mom got sick years ago, I became the responsible one.
I kept the family functioning. I protected everyone.
I protected you.
And now I'm being punished for it. No, he replied quietly.
You're being held accountable.
She broke. I only did what I thought was right.
Tyler muttered under his breath. Right for who, though?
Linda shot him a wounded look.
You think I'm greedy? You all think I'm some monster.
No one answered. Silence itself gave her the answer. Her voice trembled.
Do you know what it's like to be the oldest? To feel like the entire family is on your shoulders? To feel like if you don't control everything, everything will fall apart.
My heart twisted. For the first time, I saw the fear beneath her control.
Grandfather walked closer, kneeling slightly so their eyes were level. Linda, he said softly, I never asked you to carry the whole family.
You picked up a burden I didn't place on your back.
And instead of putting it down, you built your identity around it. She stared at him, unable to speak. You weren't protecting the family legacy, he continued. You were protecting your place in it. Her breath hitched. And when you felt threatened, you crossed a line. A sob escaped her.
Not anger now. Not defiance. Just regret, raw and real.
And for the first time that night, my chest ached for her. Grandfather rose slowly, as though the weight of the moment pressed against his spine. Yet when he straightened, he looked taller, steadier, like a man who'd made a decision long before any of us realized this confrontation was coming. Everyone, he said quietly, sit.
We obeyed without question.
Aunt Linda wiped her eyes, trembling, but she stayed silent. Tyler leaned forward, elbows on knees. My mother held her breath. Uncle Raymond muttered a quick prayer under his breath. Even the air felt like it was waiting for whatever grandfather would do next. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sealed, cream-colored envelope.
My heart thudded.
The envelope looked strangely familiar.
Heavy, purposeful, important.
Grandfather walked toward me and placed it gently in my hands. It felt warm, like he'd been holding it for a long time before this night. This, he said, was supposed to be given to you after I confirmed the transfer.
He paused.
But now, it serves a different purpose.
Aunt Linda's breath hitched.
Tyler leaned closer, eyes widening. Grandfather turned toward the entire family. This envelope determines what happens next.
My throat tightened. What do you mean? He folded his hands behind his back.
Inside is the full account of tonight, the transfer, the reversal, the footage, the implications, and a written directive from me.
His eyes softened as he looked at me. But I won't open it. You will. The room went still.
He continued, you will decide whether this becomes a legal matter or a family matter. Aunt Linda gasped like someone had struck her across the face.
No.
Dad, please.
He held up a hand. I'm not punishing you. I'm giving him the choice you tried to take from me. Her expression crumpled. My palms grew sweaty as the envelope seemed to gain weight in my hands.
I felt every stare pressing against my skin. The hope, the fear, the desperation. You see, Grandfather said, trust isn't built by who manages documents. It's built by who protects the family even when they have every reason not to.
My stomach twisted.
You can destroy her, he said softly. Or you can protect her from the consequences she brought upon herself.
Aunt Linda collapsed into a sob.
Whatever you choose, Grandfather finished, will tell me everything I need to know.
The envelope shook in my hands. This wasn't a gift.
This wasn't an inheritance.
This was a test. A test of my integrity, my loyalty, my character, and the future of our entire family hung on what I did next.
The envelope felt impossibly heavy, as if every word inside it carried the weight of our family's future. My fingers trembled against the sealed flap. Everyone watched me, silent, breathless, hanging on the edge of whatever choice I was about to make. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking about inheritance or legacy. I was thinking about the look on Aunt Linda's face, broken, terrified, ashamed. A lifetime of control crumbling in seconds.
I swallowed hard and looked up at Grandfather.
I know what this says, I murmured. I know what I'm allowed to do.
He nodded once.
The question is, what will you do?
I turned to Linda. She wasn't proud. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't even angry anymore.
She just looked human. A woman who had carried responsibility like armor for decades, then clung to it so tightly she suffocated herself with it. And in that moment, I understood something. This wasn't about punishing her. This was about breaking a cycle. I took a deep breath. "I'm not giving this to an attorney," I said. "I'm not filing anything. I'm not turning this into a public disgrace." Aunt Linda's lips parted in disbelief. "Really?" she whispered. "But," I continued, my voice firming, "I'm not pretending nothing happened. You crossed a line. A serious one. And you have to face that." She nodded slowly, shame bowing her head. "So here's my choice," I said. "We handle this privately. As a family. But you step back. Completely. From the estate. From the finances. From all control." The room held its breath. Aunt Linda swallowed hard. "And if I don't?" "Then I open the envelope," I said quietly. Her eyes filled with tears, real ones this time, not panic or pride or frustration. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll step back." Grandfather exhaled, not in disappointment, but in relief, deep, weary relief. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "You chose well." I blinked. "Did I?" He nodded. "Punishment breeds fear, but accountability builds trust." He turned toward the rest of the family. "Effective immediately," he announced, "I am updating my estate documents." Aunt Linda stared at the floor, accepting her fate with a trembling breath. "I will appoint a new primary overseer," Grandfather continued. "Someone who values integrity over control. Someone who respects my decisions, not rewrites them." He looked directly at me. "You." A stunned silence swept the room. Not triumph. Not pride. Just a quiet, overwhelming realization. He wasn't choosing an heir. He was choosing a leader. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Being named the future overseer of the family legacy wasn't something I ever expected. Certainly not tonight. Certainly not in the middle of a Thanksgiving that had turned into a battlefield of truths. But Grandfather wasn't done. He walked back to his desk, opened a different drawer, and pulled out another envelope, this one thicker, heavier, sealed with a gold embossed stamp. The room watched him like he was unveiling a verdict. He handed it to me without a word. My heart thudded as I carefully broke the seal. Inside was a stack of documents, official ones, bank confirmations, assignment forms, a notarized directive, and a final page signed in bold, steady handwriting. At the top, transfer confirmation, $500,000. My breath caught. "You resent it?" Grandfather nodded. "This time, with safeguards, locked accounts, restricted access. Only you and I have keys. No reversals. No interference." Aunt Linda's eyes filled again, but this time the tears weren't from fear, they were from understanding. From finally seeing the line she had crossed, and the bridge Grandfather still refused to burn completely. I looked back at the documents, overwhelmed. "But why give me this now?" Grandfather smiled softly. "Because your decision tonight, your choice to protect the family rather than cut it apart, told me everything I needed to know." He placed a hand over mine. "This money is a tool. A responsibility, not a reward." The weight of his words settled over me. "This isn't about inheritance," he continued. "It's about stewardship. About safeguarding what I built long after I'm gone. Tonight, you proved you can carry that responsibility without letting greed, pride, or anger poison it." The room remained silent, but something had shifted, something gentler. The sharp edges of the confrontation had softened into something like healing. Aunt Linda wiped her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Truly." For the first time all night, Grandfather walked toward her and touched her shoulder. "I know," he said quietly. "But trust must be rebuilt slowly." She nodded, understanding. Grandmother let out a shaky breath. "Thank goodness this family is still standing." Mother smiled, weary but relieved. Tyler laughed nervously, muttering, "Best Thanksgiving ever," and immediately regretted it when everyone glared at him. Finally, Grandfather turned back to me. "You passed the test," he said. "Not by following instructions, but by choosing compassion when revenge was easier." I swallowed the lump in my throat. He squeezed my shoulder gently. "The real gift," he said, "was never the money." He looked around at his family, fractured, messy, imperfect, but still together. It was trust. And tonight, you earned it.